Term I want to mention today is the idea of a masculine personality identity crisis. And it's formed out of a man coming into life and realizing that he would like sex. And then he sees that here is woman. She can give me sex. All right, guys, it's Garrett Prettyman, and with me today also is Mark Dredska.
Hey, brothers, I'm Mark Dresger out in Australia. I'm a men's coach also, and here we're going to be having a conversation around masculinity.
Term I want to mention today is the idea of a masculine personality identity crisis. And it's formed out of a man coming into life and realizing that he would like sex. And then he sees that here is woman. She can give me sex. So he thinks I must do something for the woman to give me sex. And he observes how she is and she kind of makes known the things she likes and doesn't like. Maybe she looks at those guys and she's like, yeah, that's an asshole. I can't believe anybody would ever be with him. So he's thinking in his mind, oh, I'll never be like that guy. And then she says something one day about how much she loves volleyball or something. And then he's thinking, oh, I bet if I got into volleyball, she'd like me. So he's slowly forming a personality about himself to try to get sex from someone. And the pendulum can swing far the other way too. We have the men that strictly are like, I should be loved for who I am. I should get to just be who I am. Why do I have to do all the work in a relationship? She should just love me for me. So here's these two extreme views on this topic. And the identity crisis comes in because neither are authentic to a mature man. Both are avatars that the man is living through trying to get something, which is an indicator of a scarcity thinking. We think that we have to chase these things to have them instead of trusting that if I build something, things will show up naturally. And Mark, what comes to your mind when you think of the masculine identity crisis?
Well, in this context, the first thing that pops up in my mind is the difference between leadership and following. Because if you're a leader, you take the lead, right? You initiate, you begin the process. As a follower, you put someone else's head above yours. And we see this in with guys incredibly often, where we put a woman up on a pedestal and we try to become exactly what they want in order to get what we want, right? Instead of just being who we are, being honest about it, and letting the chips fall where they may.
Mm,
Now, that does open up this quandary or this complex situation about knowing when is it okay to be yourself. Well, for me, if you're insecure, pissed, angry, frustrated, jealous, it's probably not a good thing to be yourself at that time, is it? But if you're standing in your own comfort and you're secure in yourself, there's an ability to adapt in real time to what's happening. You're honestly expressing yourself. You're leading yourself again towards where you want to go, creating the life that you want. Yeah, then you should be yourself. If the woman wants to follow you, she will. If she doesn't, well, she doesn't have to. But that we've got to go right to the start, don't we? And establish, well, who are we? Are we the guy who likes volleyball? Or are we the guy who says, you know what? I don't care about volleyball.
yeah. And having the courage and confidence to be okay if she isn't cool with that. That's the mistake the guy makes that has the identity crisis is he thinks that if she doesn't agree, if there's not an agreement between them, that somehow is bad. But like polarity in sexuality is a chemistry. If you had two perfect matches, there would be no romance. And yet
Yeah.
somehow in the man's brain, we love problems that are like 2 + 2 is 4. And then we're like, oh, now I have a formula. I'm going to operate to this checklist and we're going to actually get to where we're trying to go. We're working with a female here. Even if you became the perfect white knight in shining armor that you think she would adore, that would probably change by next summer. And that,
Yeah.
that undermines a man's confidence to constantly be in flux to please the woman.
There's something there as well, which is the masculine thrives on consistency, right? We love consistency. We love predictability. The feminine is the polar opposite of that. So yeah, in one moment she might like volleyball. Doesn't mean that she will consistently like volleyball. Or I know we're using this volleyball example, but you can't allow her to determine who you are,
Mhm.
because if you do, you'll be changing left, right, and center. Every 5 minutes, you'll be a different person, which means she has nothing to latch onto. There's nothing to relax into because she doesn't know who the fuck you are. How can you possibly build trust if every time she turns towards you, you're something different, depending on how you've interpreted her actions or her motives? You've got to actually stand strong and establish who you are, be yourself, as long as you're not a dick, and show her that consistently so she can rely on you to a certain degree. So if she's in a chaotic moment, she knows that, you know what, at least Mark is going to be all right. I'm not responsible for him as well.
Bringing the masculine energy to a relationship requires hanging around other guys. If you're the man that thinks that I need to be friends with lots of women and they all think I'm cool and they would even put a good word in for me if I was to date one of their friends, we've put ourselves in the position of that feminine approval. The more you hang around men and the way men think and the way men talk, it's very analytical, it's very data driven, it's very direct. We will naturally embody that then when we're around women. So a lot of guys think that there's things they have to sacrifice to be attractive. And that's part of the identity crisis is that play that out. It's 30 years in marriage. You see the man with his head bent down that knows he has to feed the dog, pour the coffee, rub her foot, and I don't know what else the routine is that she's established that if he doesn't check all those boxes, he's in trouble.
Yeah. And the irony is she doesn't want this anyway. Long term, it's not going to create the friction or the juice in the relationship to maintain a desire, right? It's not the polarity is difference, right? Positive and negative. That's what creates the charge. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be contrarian, but you just have to be yourself and know who you are. If you don't know who you are, how can she possibly learn who you are and then make a decision whether she wants to be with you?
As we wind up this video, I'm going to drop a little golden nugget about masculinity for anybody watching this to just think of here for a minute. Realize that most of the things that make you valuable as a man are things that you're going to value, but probably not receive others' input that it's valuable until it's missing. That's the moment in which people are suddenly like, where is it? Why is it gone? But when it's actually there, there's nobody really valuing it. So a man who is consistent to his standards, his personal values, his own boundaries. Let's say you have a boundary of that you don't have sex with other women when you're married. Okay, no, but she's not going to come in the room every day and praise you for your value. She's not going to go, oh, wow, look at you went out to work today and she hit on you and you didn't even respond. You're probably going to get zero affirmation for that value. You're doing it for you. But I can guarantee you that if you stopped doing it for you, because you're like, well, she doesn't even care anyway, it would be a big deal suddenly. So most of the things that men stand for as men are not going to be praised. They're not going to be valued. They're not going to be honored by her because she's not a logical thinking, data driven minded individual that calculates all those pros, cons, and risks and sees why you're being that way. But you do, and you do it for yourself.
Yeah. David Data says it best, your past successes mean nothing to her in the moment that she's in. You might have been the perfect husband for 30 years. You fuck up once, that's it. You've basically fucked up for that 30 years. We, as men, we try and rely on our past history or our good record to get us out of jail free if something comes up, but it just doesn't work like that. Again, that is a difference between the masculine and the feminine. If a man is consistently showing up to his friends for years and years, and then he slips up once and he forgets something or whatever, we're generally pretty forgiving. We're like, he's been good for the last 30 years. I'll let that slide. The feminine sees it very, very different, right? Your past successes or your track record means zilch.
So this is the work that Mark and I do with men. We take them on a journey from not knowing what they didn't know to getting some foundational things under their belt so they can be men who are clear, men who have a direction, and men who respond consistently within their own frame, not other people's frames or values or opinions. And it creates that kind of polarity that Mark was talking about a minute ago. If anybody wants to learn more, you can go to markdredskacoaching.com and reach out to Mark, or garrettprettymancoaching.com to reach out to me.
And it's markdresga.com.
It's not Mark Dredska Coaching.
No.
Thank you for the correction on that. Yeah.